Many thanks for this introduction. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm really excited to be presenting here today. So, I've only ever worked at one institution, so don't follow me in your careers. I've only ever worked at the OU. In fact, I went there in the early 80s to do a PhD on building an AI tutor. So I got my PhD, but sometimes I still feel I'm doing it over again. This talk will be solely on AI. I ran out of room to talk about other technologies, and it will include elements around generative AI, which is the hot new topic at the moment, underlying tools such as ChatGPT. So without further ado, let me give you a little bit of context. So as Kevin says, I'm coming from the Open University, where we teach at scale. We've had 2.2 million students teach with us. We have around 205,000 students studying with us at the moment. We have an open repository of materials. We've had 95 million people visit that. And the word open in open universities means that you do not need any qualifications to teach with us. So we have students who have literally not studied for a decade. We have a lot of students, 36,000, who have a disability. So it's really about teaching everyone in an open fashion. And that really drives what we do in my lab. So my lab is the Knowledge Media Institute. And actually, it's really funny. We're in the Catalyst Hall. So we think ourselves as a catalyst, or maybe my senior colleagues would say an irritant, to try and move the university to change and adopt some new technologies. Just one example of the scale. If you ever see David Attenborough on TV, that's pretty much always a co-production with us. So we provide the science of that. And for any program that he presents, Frozen Planet, Blue Planet 2, Wild Isles, there are various extra learning materials that map from the BBC website to us. In fact, we had a project, I'm not going to talk about today, where you could click on any BBC program and it would automatically find you related open learn materials that we have. Okay, the other main thing that drives me really, is Bloom's 2 sigma problem. I don't know if you're aware of this. So it came out in a paper in 1984. He did a study comparing a control group of students to students that had a particular way of learning, mastery learning, where you don't let students proceed until they've really understood the current level, and then students using this in one-on-one tutoring. And it turns out, if he gives, not a surprise really, if he gives students one-on-one tutoring, they perform 2 orders of magnitude better than a control group of 30 students. And so my dream, actually, since I arrived at the OU, is can we use machines to give students some element of one-on-one tutoring? You'll never emulate humans, but maybe you can emulate a portion of that and shift students, as in this graph. And so he says, just what I said. So the average student performs above the 98th percentile of the students in the control class. Okay, so we have my lab, which is a technology R&D center for the Open University. We have a sister institution which focuses on pedagogy, IET, the Institute of Education and Technology. And we've also had a theme of running test and learn projects for the last 4 years at the OU. So £2 to £3 million a year on looking at technologies and how they can support the OU. And through that, this is our one-slide strategy for how AI will drive the OU in the future, which I call the OU AI ecosystem. At the middle, we have an enterprise data hub where we just put all of your valuable data. So all your data involved in interactions with the students, I'll show you a particular technology around that, and then all our materials. We spend tens of millions of pounds every year on making materials. We have course teams that sit for a couple of years making these materials. You put that all into one big pot. And then around that, you put some technologies which allow machines to understand that. I won't say much more about that. But basically, you have machines that can read your materials and understand your interactions. And then you can have a set of AI services around that. And there are 5 main ones. I'll touch on a few in my talk. So the first one is a digital assistant. It takes 6 years on minimum for students to learn with us because they're learning part-time. So the student would pick up an AI tutor on day one, and that would follow them and give them advice throughout their career. We have AI tools to help the tutors. We have 4,000 tutors, we call them associate lecturers, that aid our 205,000 students, so they can have AI support. I'll spend some time looking at how you can use AI to create materials. You can use AI for assessment. And then if you can do AI for assessment, then you can give out free certification on free learning platforms, which are large scale. People will know about MOOCs. And then finally, you have something we call the Dream Machine, which is AI as a career tutor for students. So I'll do a little bit of history first. OU Analyze is a tool that we built back in 2011. It uses machine learning to predict how well a student's going to do. So if you're into artificial intelligence like I am, or data science, the OU is a dream place to be. Because we have a lot of students, it means we have a lot of data. So on the large courses, we'll have 3,000 students, and the nice thing is those students are doing exactly the same thing. So you have 3,000 students starting in October, they learn from exactly the same materials. You'll have another 3,000 that start in February in larger courses. And it's now used, this tool is used by a third of our associate lecturers. So I'll just show you this video. So what we're doing is we're comparing the 2014 students who started in J, which is October, to the 2015 students. So you machine learn over last year's students, that tells you how to operate in this year's students. And that top graph, you look at the interactions on the virtual learning environment and their scores in the, on their assignments. And then this graph, every row is an individual student. And the machine learning programs predict with 95% accuracy, are they going to pass the next assignment or pass the course overall? This screen is an individual student. You can click on an individual student, and then you compare them to their cohort. And you can say, okay, how are they interacting on the virtual learning environment? Is it above or below per week? How they're doing on their assignments? So this is the current version of the tool. That video is a bit old. And you can see that for each student, we show their predictions for their TMAs, their predictions for the course overall, and how are they attending the tutorials. So it's really engagement that counts, it turns out. And our virtual learning environment opens up 2 weeks before the course starts. We can predict, in some cases, with 80% accuracy, is the student going to do well, with just their interactions and their demographic data before the course actually starts. So engagement is everything. Also, again, you'll know this, but I'll say it anyway, the first assignment is the killer. If you do badly on the first assignment, then you're going to struggle throughout the rest of the course. This tool has won awards. It's been highlighted in reports by commissions from the House of Lords. It's been featured in the media. So we've conducted a number of studies you analyze over the years. So it turns out it's the second biggest predictor. Is the student going to do well? Is dependent on, is your tutor using the tool? And then the students whose tutors are using this do better, and they're more likely to be retained, and they're more likely to get higher grades. And the latest study showed that there's 7% increased chance of passing the course, which rises to 10% for BAE students. And then here's a quote from one of our associate lecturers. So some associate lecturers say, well, I sort of know this anyway, but they, even good ones, get surprised by it all, by spotting students they didn't know were really struggling. Okay, so that's something that we built, an AI tool using machine learning that's been very successful. Now I'll go through some of the elements in my strategy and show you what we've built and been doing for those. So the first is the Dream Machine, which is an AI career coach. So we call it the Dream Machine. So it's fulfilling students' dreams. They have a dream of a career. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. What skills do I need to do this? What skills, how does that map to the skills I already have? I want to change my job. We have lots of students who've gone literally from low-skilled jobs to being professors. I want to do that. How can I do this? What would my future look like with what I'm doing? So what we're doing in this tool is we're mapping on this cornerstone concept of a skill between the skills we provide in our courses, their learning outcomes for those, the skills that our students already have, and the skills that are required in jobs. So we have tools which will automatically read CVs, automatically scan job adverts on online postings, and understand our courses. So I'll just show you a clip of a video that explains a part of this.
Half of knowledge, about 2 million different link concepts. Now, if you take my CV, you could see that in the past I was a project manager. So you can link a node, which is Maxi, to the node, which is a project manager. And now automatically, I'm also linked to the other nodes. You can know that I manage people, I am able to do planning and such things. So knowing what it knows about the job market and knowing what it knows about you, you can link these nodes and find the best path to match you to the perfect job.
So the main concept in this tool is something called a knowledge graph. If you use any search engine like Google, when you search, for example, for Stoke-on-Trent, you get a panel on the right-hand side, which will give you views, will give you pictures, will know that it's a town or a city, may know the population. And that's because Google has a conceptual graph of everything on the web. And we do the same for jobs and skills. And then we do this mapping using the skills concept. So that's how the knowledge graph works. We built a prototype and showed it to students. They liked it. So you just glean some knowledge from the students, like getting a small profile, and then you can give them advice as they go along. So that's one tool. I want to talk about improving question answering. So this is using GPT, GPT-3. So ChatGPT is underlined by GPT 3.5. So this is a slightly earlier version. I'll show you later demos using GPT-4, the latest version from OpenAI. So this is in the context of two module teams. So we tend to do all of our work with the people that somehow act at the coalface. So there'll be some AI experts, but here we also have people from psychology, teaching psychology methods and skills, and people teaching beginners Chinese in the School of Languages and Applied Linguistics. So this is the architecture of what we built. I won't say too much about this, but basically we're comparing the GPT-3 engine to our virtual learning environment, the search in there, and then a collection of other procedures, which we call an ensemble. So we built this, and we built a web interface for that, and then did some evaluation for that. So what we did is we looked at the questions which come up on the forums. So we run a number of different forums for students, for our 200,000 students to interact on. We found some questions in there. We looked at the answers that GPT-3 gave, along with the top 3 answers that we would get from our virtual learning environment and our ensemble of other search techniques. Then we created a survey, gave it to students, and we had around 30 respondees from psychology and Chinese to rate. How do you rate this response to this search query? So in psychology, the results were that in 87% of cases, GPT-3 performed better than the search engine. Now, for me, this is what's really impressive about this is that GPT-3 is not trained to understand anything about psychology or Chinese. It's what's called a foundation model. So OpenAI have trained a deep learning system on the entire web. So this system has read the entire web, and now we're asking it to answer questions about psychology research methods. And it does better than 87% that's been trained on our own data. So that's what's really impressive about these foundation models, that this tool can write Irish limericks, it can speak Bengali, it can speak Russian, it can do coding, and it is 87% the best answers in psychology. For Chinese, GPT-3 was the most relevant answer in 97%, and in 90% of the cases. So, so that was good. Actually, to correct me, this is a foundation model which knows it's been given a little bit of extra help. in psychology and Chinese. But it's still impressive that it's basically a generic model able to do this well. The other thing we did is we used another AI tool. So there's an explosion of AI tools at the moment that do different things. In the generative AI space, as well as having ChatGPT that does text very well, there's a suite of tools that do image. So they've won photography prizes and art prizes, and also video is coming. So there's impressive automatic AI generation of video. Now what this is an AI system which is a human-like avatar. So it gives expressions in a human-like manner and is able to read a script in a human-like way. So what's happening is, this is not a canned demo that I'm going to show you. So this is a tool where I ask a generic question, anything on psychology, research methods and skills. That question, there's a speech understanding, then it goes to GPT-3, you get an answer. That comes back as a script to the AI, which then generates an answer. So this could be a question. I think I'll only show you one. There's a delay because there's a delay getting to GPT-3, and you'll see that the answer comes up in text as well, for those that don't want to wait for the other answer.
What is the difference between structured and unstructured interviews?
In a structured interview, all interviewers ask the same predetermined questions in the same order. This makes it easy to compare answers between different candidates. In an unstructured interview, the interviewer asks questions as they occur to them and follows up on the answers given. This allows for a more natural conversation, but makes it harder to compare answers.
Okay, so for me, what's a game changer here is that this, in principle, could work on any written materials from any university. You take a foundation model, which has read the entire web, you take your particular pieces of text, you extend the model in that sense, and then the student could say, okay, I want to talk to an avatar about chapter 2 or about this section, and then the avatar is created instantaneously and it can answer questions. So you turn all of your books into videos, basically at a click of a button. We've are always looking to our students to see, okay, what do they think about these technologies? So here's the results from a survey of 155 students. And then you can see, in the most part, they are positive about the idea of having some sort of AI to interact with. 2/3 would like to have it in the virtual learning environment, and 62% say they would use it. They even given their names to this. So students are used to, especially younger students, are used to digital life, and they would see this as something that they would use. Okay, I have some more demos in the teaching area, but I want to show you something that we've done with GPT in the research area. So we have a section of the lab that have built a tool called Core, which runs as a national service. So if you go to Core AC UK, you'll see this running. It's the world's largest repository of open scientific publications. So they basically scan the entire web, look for open repositories of publications that are there, and then ingest them. Get AI machines to understand them, understand the concepts and relationships, and mark them up. And they have, that number slightly out of date, they have practically 300 million research publications that they've tagged. So that's been running for a while. In fact, they built it 10 years ago, and in fact, it was used in the ref to check if universities, when you submitted your publications, were they openly accessible. And what they've done now is they've connected this to GPT. So you can somehow chat to a tool and say, I want to, give me a summary of the state of the art in a certain area. So here's, I'll show you a short video of this. So I type in a request, what's the state of the art in AI and higher education? Then the system takes some time. It does a search in Core on the 300 million research publications, sends those the top findings to GPT, and then gets a result. And then you can see at the top is a summary from GPT, saying, here's a summary of what I think the answer is, and then below are the 5 most relevant publications, so that you can check that you have. One problem that you may have read online with these tools is that they hallucinate, which means they don't always tell a factual answer. But here, the answer is referenced with publications, so you can check for yourself on the accuracy. We think this will be a useful tool for our module team writers. So if you're writing any educational material, you'll have by your side access to 300 million research publications, and then you can get summaries of any elements of those. So now I want to talk about the AI module writing assistant. So as I said, we spend a lot of resources at the Open University in writing modules. So anything that helps with us can really be beneficial. I'll first actually show a tool that Kevin funded. So Kevin gave me some nice funding. Actually, I just sent him a request and he gave me the money. It's the type of request that I like. This is VocTeach. So this is an AI technology. It's the same AI that it's the same AI that underlies your tools, systems, platforms such as Netflix or Prime Video. So think of it as Netflix, but instead of watching TV programs or movies, this is educational content excerpts. So if you want to build an online course, then you can just come and stitch these parts together. And in fact, the motivation for this was the pandemic. So in the pandemic, all universities had to go into lockdown. All universities and other institutions had to teach online. And we thought, okay, let's try and help them by creating a repository. This has been funded 3 times, and this tool is an MVP that we built for the FE sector in the construction area. So you can see that there are different elements, different palettes, different elements of construction like health and safety. What's happening is we automatically ingest from trusted partners. The ingested content comes in, we automatically mark it up, map it to national standards for curricula. You can see the curricula below. And then somebody can come in and say, okay, for my profile, I'm teaching first-year students on electrical engineering. Are there any courses which fit this national curriculum? And then it will recommend content for you. You can build your own collections like Pinterest and then share them with your colleagues. So that was a very successful tool. So Netflix for education. Oops. Should have done that. Okay, so in the module creation, the objectives were the following. And these are really the same objectives that the OU has had since the very beginning. We've always wanted to create high-quality materials that are accessible at scale. At the beginning, it was radio programs and then elements in the post. Can we personalize those materials? At the moment, we've been personalizing through our tutors because the content is somehow fixed and is a one-size-fits-all. Can we adapt materials? It's not easy to take materials which are written for one context and adapt them from another. And can we facilitate that using generative AI technologies such as GPT? This is something which else drove us. It's a PhD from in IT. I was an internal examiner. It's a study of what do our course materials look like. So these are courses in the arts, health, science, and languages, and there are different colors. So the orange is assimilative, which basically means your students are just mainly reading, and the blue is assessment. So you can see in our courses across our different faculties, the students are spending most of their time reading and doing assimilative and doing assessment. And with this technology, maybe we can change that and make the elements more interactive. This was work with 4 module teams, Chinese and other languages from the languages school, a data management and analysis course from the computing department, and psychology course. We conducted 4 workshops with the different areas and also with our production team. We have a whole unit, a large unit at the Open University for doing online course production. And in those, we came up with around 150 challenges and 139 different ideas, different ways that this technology could be used to improve how we teach. So the main focus of the results of the brainstorming was the majority are in enhancing the learning experience. There's some around content creation, some around the back end. So the main categories are improving accessibility and inclusivity, for example, automatically generating alt text for all the images that we have, improving the metadata on the back end of all the materials, enhancing the learning experience, automatically producing a conversational partner for students. Can we automatically create the introductions and summaries of any chapter? Can we produce virtual tutoring partners? And then can we help students understand AI in general? General observations that we found, some of these are obvious, I'll say them anyway. Of course, don't use the technology for the sake of it just because it's a shiny new tool. Make sure you have a clear business objective. Be clear about the time that you're saving and any other efficiencies gave. This movement I've mentioned before, from static content to dynamic content, could be automated. I think about when film was first created. So what happened was people merely filmed plays, and it took decades for the film industry and films to come out very hard with all the editing techniques and the special effects. So you need to reimagine the whole process. So the way you create materials will not be the same, and the need for rapid updating. So especially in the fast-moving areas, the ability to automatically select a page, okay, now update this page or this chapter with the state of the art, pulling in materials maybe from core GPT. In the languages areas, there's a need for high-volume video and audio. And as I said, there are AI tools already in automatic video creation and audio creation. This tool, as I said, it can hallucinate. So we have different analogies for these. One analogy, having GPT is like having an infinite army of interns. They're good, they do work for you for free, but they make mistakes. Another person said, it's like having the world's expert, because they've read the entire web, but they're in a bar and they're a bit drunk. And so they'll make mistakes. So don't trust all the output, but it has definite advantages. There's a learning curve. We're getting small groups to use this. I've led a group in our marketing department. There'll be, anyone who's in the creative area, there'll be big changes. So I was recently at an event where there were architects using this for the brainstorming part. There are companies using it for the automatic creation of the text that goes with all the products. And then there are licensing issues. There are legal issues resolved, but it can help with that. I spoke to a lawyer recently, and he said that if one of these tools creates an image, nobody owns that unless there's a terms and conditions on the site. Okay, so just some of the ideas I delve into that we created. This is and what you're seeing is basically verbatim what was generated in the brainstorming session. So this is a real-time assistant. So imagine you have a window on the left. So whenever the student is reading something, they're reading on the left panel. On the right panel is GPT, and it's giving a running commentary. And I can ask, tell me this, explain it to me like I'm 11 years old. What's the state of the art? How does this relate to whatever I'm interested in? Personalized journeys. I said personalization is a big key, going back to Bloom's study. And with this, you could personalize. So you could say, we're going to take the student's context and their needs. Do they have a particular disability? Do they have a learning preference? Again, explain it to me in a different age level. One thing we thought of is you could take all of the students' essays and say, okay, could you please rewrite this chapter in the style of my own essays? Now, of course, there are pedagogical issues with that, but you can imagine anything being written in any way for the preference of the student. Role playing. So in some courses, so for example in psychology, the students have to learn about counseling. You could automatically create an AI that could be the subject of their counseling, and then they could play with that. And then the last one is an AI forum. Open university students do not like interacting with other students in general. And they don't like being on our forum. They don't, imagine if you haven't studied for a decade, you might be a bit shy about that. But we could create an AI forum, and then they could play in somehow a safe space, and they can practice. Maybe we could have all good students, maybe we could put bad students, and they could learn how to interact with others in a safe space. Okay, so I want to give you a first demo. So this demo is just a few days old. It's just scratching the surface of what we're doing. So we're going to flesh this out and build a demo of a full AI module writing assistant. So what will happen here is, this is for an academic. They would choose the module that they're working on, choose a particular unit, and then they would choose, what you do is you send in a prompt, but there'll be pre-made prompts. I don't know if you've heard the phrase prompt engineering. So it's a way of getting these tools to do. It's a matter of selecting the text that you put in. There's a lot of skill for that. We could pre-populate that, and then this will help them write a conclusion for an existing module. So here we go. We go to the module. It's a languages module, L161. I pick a particular unit in that, unit 14, and then I say, okay, ask the module assistant to write the conclusions for this. I could ask it to write the conclusion. And then you see that's going into the prompt. You send it to the tool, and then it just basically starts writing the text for you. And then you can say, if you don't like it, you can ask again, because it's probabilistic. So it doesn't write exactly the same thing every time. And then you can change that. And then if you like it, you can take it, and then you can edit it for that. And this could be applied for any element of course production. Just to conclude, so I'm biased because I work in the AI area, obviously, but all the colleagues I talk to say that this is basically the invention of the printing press and the Industrial Revolution rolled into one. It's going to change anything that has a creative element. And if you think that all universities are the bastion for generating, disseminating, and preserving knowledge, and this is going to change what knowledge means in the same way that the printing press did and the web did. There's a new way of doing that. The OU is going to embrace this, especially with me irritating them all the time with this technology, and I think all universities should as well. Thank you.